So the first watch on this list was released in 1953. It was built to fulfill the unique needs of military divers. Specifically, this timepiece had to be able to withstand being submerged 100 meters, which at the time was no small feat, as that most watches weren't even water resistant. It also needed luminous indicators on a high contrast dial and a timing device in the form of a unidirectional bezel. Now, if you guessed I'm talking about the Rolex Submariner, you would be wrong. Yes, the Rolex Submariner met all those specifications and was released in 1953, but it wasn't commissioned by the military. And the watch I'm talking about here actually came out a few months before Rolex's iconic timepiece. Nope, the watch we're talking about today is the original dive watch. We're talking Blancpain's 50 Fathoms. As the name of the watch piece implies, this timepiece was made to go underwater. You see, diving in the early 1950s was a very new sport. Yeah, people have been going underwater for thousands of years, but with the development of scuba gear, all of a sudden explorers were going deeper and deeper and things were getting more dangerous. Divers needed a watch that was made specifically for them and met their specifications, especially military divers who needed accurate timekeeping not only to coordinate with other units, but also to survive the deeps whenever they were coming back up. Seriously, if you're not familiar with the bends, just Google it. Man, it is not something you want to go through. In any case, the development of this watch wasn't really commercial for Blancpain. This was seen as something that, hey, they're doing a favor for the French military, because as their CEO said at the time, he thought the market for this watch was pretty much non-existent. Well, it turns out that he was wrong. In fact, throughout the 1950s, 60s, and 70s, dive watches quickly became one of the most common, one of the most sought after type of watches out there. And that takes us to the next watch on this list, the Rolex Submariner. So nowadays, the brand Rolex is synonymous with luxury watches. But back in 1953, they were viewed as tool watches that were relatively tough and were water resistant. In fact, as many of you guys know, that's why they had the name Oyster Perpetual. The idea is that we had a sealed case that kept moisture, that kept water out. Well, in late 1953, Rolex released the Submariner. Now, what's interesting about this release is how close in date and how similar in design it is to the Blancpain 50 Fathoms. Now, as many of you guys know, the watch industry is a bit incestuous, so who knows who was talking with who, how this information got passed. I don't know. To me, it just seems obvious that Rolex got wind of what Blancpain was doing and said, you know what, we're going to bet that this market is going to blow up. And because we've already got the technology, we can adjust one of our existing watches. Let's get some of these out here and see what happens. Well, what happened is Rolex created one of the most iconic, if not the most iconic watch in the world. Seriously, the Rolex Submariner is what people think Rolex is. In fact, I'm betting you could just take the silhouette of a Rolex Submariner and show it to the average person, and they would probably guess which luxury watch this is. And some watch snobs out there are going to say, you know what? It's because Rolex is great at marketing. That is true. They did market the hell out of this watch. But you got to hand it to the design, the aesthetics, and the durability. This watch is amazing. And for all intents and purposes, for a lot of guys, is the grail watch, the watch that they want to own, which I totally get because I fell into the hype and I bought a Rolex Submariner. That being said, within 2 years of buying it, I ended up selling it. To put it simply, I just wasn't wearing it. I didn't fall in love with it. In fact, I loved my Tudor Black Bay 58 even more. Now, to a non-watch enthusiast, they're going to look at the Black Bay 58, look at the Rolex Submariner and say, hey, these watches look very similar. To that point, I will agree, but there are some small differences. First up, the Black Bay 58 I felt was a bit more compact, and I just like the colors and the contrast. I also like the metal, the steel, a little bit better. With a 6.5-inch wrist, I found that the Black Bay fit better on my wrist than the larger Rolex. The Black Bay 58 also had this vintage feel, which I really liked, and I did like the price. It was 1/3 the cost of a Rolex. Now, before you dismiss this video as one that's only talking about dive watches, guys, I'm here to tell you I'm going to talk about a wide variety of different styles. Because when I'm talking about old money watches, what I'm talking about are watches that have a storied history, watches that people choose because they're not only looking great and they're going to work in a variety of situations, but they are functional. They've actually got some history behind them. And for guys that know watches, they're going to see these watches and say, hey, that is a great choice. A perfect example of that is the Hamilton khaki field watch. Now, as many of you guys know, based out of Lancaster, Pennsylvania, Hamilton has been making watches for over 150 years. These guys started with pocket watches. They actually made watches during World War I for the US military, and they continued that tradition in World War II. In fact, they've served the military for over 75 years, and from 1942 to 1945, produced over 1 million timepieces for the military efforts. Now, throughout the 1950s, 60s, 70s, Hamilton produced a wide range of field watches, and a classic field watch is one that has a high contrast dial, so when you look at it, you can easily tell what time it is. Now, a classic field watch usually isn't going to have a whole lot of complications. It's going to be very simple to look at, very simple to read the time. The idea here was you could quickly glance at the watch, get the time, and move on with what you need to do. Over the years, they evolved, especially the ones adopted and used in aviation. And at its heart, a classic field watch is going to be a bit casual, not exactly a dress watch, but it's going to be incredibly functional, useful, and versatile. Now, there's a lot of khaki fields I could have put on this list, but the one I'm actually going to bring up, it's a variation. It appeared in the movie Interstellar, and that is the khaki field Murph Auto. Now, I actually did get my hands on this watch, and I felt the 42 millimeter was a bit large, so I was very happy to see they came out with a 38 millimeter. I've yet to pull the trigger on this one, but you can see here, this is a very simple, elegant design. I love the movie reference. If you haven't seen the movie Interstellar, you definitely want to check it out. The point being, a classic field watch, this is a timeless one you could add to your collection, and yeah, anyone that sees this watch is going to know this is a classic. Now, what about something more affordable? Something well under $100? Check out the classic Timex Weekender. Affordable, stylish, and reliable. First released in 2011, there are tons of different styles of weekenders out there, and what I love about this watch, again, it's affordable, it's dependable, and it just looks good. It's really got a timeless design, and if you want to have fun with a fashion watch, again, that you can change out the straps, that you can, wear and not worry about something happening to it, I love the Timex Weekender. Definitely check that one out. Now, as we're talking about field watches, some of you guys may be saying, well, what about the Seiko Alpinist? Now, the reference number on this one is SARB 017, and officially Seiko released this watch first in 2006, and they stopped producing it a few years back. Now, when I saw this watch online, I really liked the colors and I liked the unique design. In particular, I found it really interesting that it had this rotating azimuthal bezel, which is operated by a crown located at the 4 o'clock. It's pretty cool, unique looking, and I love functional watches. So I purchased it. Lo and behold, I get it in my hands and I realize this is a watch that I am never going to wear. So why am I telling you this? Because gents, in case you didn't know, I'm giving away most of my watch collection, including this Seiko Alpinist, over in my new group, Watch Lover. So I created this group as a place where you guys can hang out and talk with each other and be able to go through free courses so you can learn more about watches. Seriously, guys, we've got hundreds of men currently in this group and they're over there just having a great time. It's absolutely free. And like I said, we got free courses, free tutorials that you can go through to learn more about watches and talk with fellow enthusiasts, share your watch of the day, and be able just to interact with cool people. And gents, to make it even better, over the next year, I'm giving away a watch every single week to a lucky member in this group that participates and adds value. So gents, go check out Watch Lover. Again, absolutely free. Check it out in the description below. So the next watch on this list was released in 1939. It was a special request by 2 Portuguese businessmen for a large, legible wristwatch that could match the accuracy of a marine chronometer. IWC's response to this was the Portugueser. Now, again, you got to remember at this point, watches were at the forefront of technology. The idea that you could hold in your hand a small mechanical device that accurately told time was a big deal. And wristwatches, because they were so much smaller than pocket watches, were really the cutting edge because everything had to be made smaller and it had to deal with the fact that it was getting knocked around more. So the Portuguese, what this thing did is it combined the precision of a pocket watch with the style and convenience of a wristwatch. Now, over the last 90 years, there have been many variations of the Portugueser, but when we still look at the classic ones, what we expect: a larger size, a clean and functional dial, and a small secondhand dial. It has a very distinctive, almost nautical aesthetic about it. And for, again, 90 years, this has been one of IWC's most iconic models. Its timeless design mixed with technical prowess. If you're looking at an IWC, the Portugueser is a great place to start. Now, this next watch was originally designed as a racing chronograph. And despite its beautiful design, it's probably safe to say that it wouldn't have its iconic status if it hadn't been picked up by NASA. Yeah, you see, in the 1960s, NASA was looking for a watch to go to the moon. Basically, they needed something that could go to space, operate cleanly, and they were testing a wide variety of watches, and guess which one was chosen? That's right, gents, the Omega Speedmaster. So in 1969, on the Apollo 11 mission, the Speedmaster became the first watch to actually be worn on the moon. Robust, precise, legible in extreme conditions, the Moon Watch, as it would forever be known after that, cemented itself as an iconic timepiece. Now, over the years, Omega has released various versions of the Speedmaster. If you've got a favorite one, let me know in the comments below. But for me, yeah, I look at the original, man, that thing just looks good. And for any of you guys that are pilots, any of you guys that like to race cars, that's what I love the history of this watch. It's got, a little bit more complication. It's got a little bit more, sport to it. It's not a dress watch. That being said, you can dress this thing up and no one's going to say anything because this is an iconic watch. Now, speaking of iconic watches, let's go and let's talk about the brand that is the holy grail of watches, at least, for a lot of people, and that's Patek Philippe. These watches, when you go look at the price of them, we're talking hundreds of thousands of dollars for these watches. So I wanted to make sure if I'm going to talk about these watches, we talk about something that maybe is reachable, something that's affordable, at least for a guy that's doing pretty well. And that's exactly why they came out with this version. Because see, Patek Philippe, despite selling these really expensive watches for a long time, especially in the 1920s, they were not doing well financially. You would think selling those expensive watches to be able to make money, but they had such a small market that they were going after. Well, after going through financial difficulties, they realized, we need to reach a larger market. So let's maintain our high quality standards of build. Let's maintain, we want to keep the brand strong, but let's put a watch out there that is really simple, really clean, but is going to be an entry-level Patek Philippe. That watch, gentlemen, is the Calatrava. I think that's how you pronounce it. Come on, guys. I try. I grew up in a trailer park in West Texas. We didn't know about these type of watches, but when you look at this thing, you can see why it's a classic. I mean, this is a clean dress watch, and the big thing here is if you want a piece of art. If you end up going deep down the rabbit hole of watches and you really want to own a Patek Philippe, this is probably going to be the entry level point. This is going to be the one that, you can save up your pennies and eventually you can afford. Simple, elegant. I also like how they brought in the Calatrava cross. So that's where this all comes from. And when you look at this watch, you see something that this is an old money, a super expensive watch. And not for everybody, but for those that drink the Kool-Aid, have fun, go for it. Now, for those of you guys on a little bit of a tighter budget, let's talk about a great dress watch that I think is incredibly elegant and you can find for just over $100. Seriously, when this thing hit the market in 2011, it was well under $100. And the people that saw it, they instantly fell in love. In fact, the company Orient didn't do a whole lot of marketing with this watch, but it was word of mouth. It was just people falling in love with the simple, clean design, the overall look, the aesthetics. Gents, the watch I'm talking about is no other than the Orient Bambino. Now, Orient, in case you didn't know, is a respected Japanese manufacturer. Now, I personally have a lot of Orients. I've got a few of their dive watches, which, by the way, I'm giving away over in Watch Lover because I just don't wear them that much. And I know you guys would love them, but I love this brand. And the Bambino, when you see this thing, it punches well above its cost. And what I love about it is the contemporary design. Whenever I see a lot of Japanese designed watches, sometimes people, especially, Seiko, they hit them on the design. It's not that great. The Bambino, there's something about it. Maybe it's the Roman numerals, but when you see this watch, it just looks like it's a European watch, yet it's an incredibly affordable price. And that dome crystal, I love it and I hate it. I love the elegant look of the dome crystal, but the thing you got to be aware of is it scratches easily. So be careful. I use mine as a dress watch. I don't wear it very often, but when I do, I really like it. It's just simply a nice looking watch that, again, is incredibly affordable. Now, I know I was ragging on Seiko in design, but Seiko does have some great watches. I mean, we're talking about dive watches earlier. Seiko has a wide range of great dive watches. I really like the Seiko Samurai. I've got this one right here in black. I've also got the Save the Ocean version. The Seiko Samurai, absolutely beautiful. Seiko also has some less expensive ones. The only issue I had with Seiko dive watches in general, though, are the bracelets. I feel that they could be more solid, more elegant, but that's neither here nor there, especially for the price you pay. But let's look at higher end Seiko. A lot of people hear Seiko, they think inexpensive watches. Did you know there was a company, Grand Seiko, and Grand Seiko is not inexpensive, which I don't have an issue with because when it comes to technology, Grand Seiko is where it's at. Seriously, the next watch on this list, or at least in particular the Drive, when it hit the market, it changed everything back in 2004. But before I get into that, let's go back to 1977. So there were these crazy engineers over at Seiko, and they had this idea of mixing quartz technology, which at the time was disrupting everything, with classic mechanical technology in watches. The idea, take the best of both worlds and be able to mix them together. But by 2004, they pretty much knew this thing was going to work. And in 2005, they released it out into the wild. You could purchase what was then known as the Spring Drive. Now, the big thing about the Spring Drive, again, is it leverages quartz technology with mechanical technology. And what you get is one of the most accurate watches ever made. We're talking affordable models that are boasting plus or minus 1 second a day. And if this wasn't enough, let's talk about the dials. So this is where I really love Grand Seiko. They spend a lot of time on the dial. And the dial that grabbed everyone's attention was the Snowflake. Now, apparently one of their factories is up near the Hotaka Mountains. And this is what inspired basically the way the snow laid. And in typical Japanese fashion, where they take something which, looks like it can't be perfected, and they show the world how it can be not only perfected, but turned into art and, be able to make money off it. Yeah, the Japanese did an amazing job with the Snowflake. When you look at this watch, you are mesmerized. Not only the way the second hand sweeps across the dial, but on the overall look and the elegance, the design of the watch. That being said, I actually had this watch in my hands and I was about to purchase it, but I didn't. You know what watch I purchased? Guys, that's what this video is about right here. See the watch I purchased. I'm actually wearing it right now. It's an amazing watch. I thought it was even better than the Snowflake. In fact, I like the Snowflake a lot, but this watch, just blew me away. I had to have it. So check out this video right here. And I thought, I do think it is better than any Rolex I own. And I still, a year on, I love this watch. What am I talking about? Guys, click right here. Boom. Find out.